now move on to the next session titled Government's Perspective, Responsible Digital Payments in COVID-19. And I'd like to welcome and introduce the members who will participate in this discussion. Shri Jayesh Ranjan, IAS Principal Secretary, Government of Telangana. Shri K. Rajaraman, IAS Additional Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. And this session will be moderated by Keyzom Massally, Asia Pacific Regional Lead, Better Than Cash Alliance, United Nations Capital Development Fund. Keyzom, over to you.
Very much and good afternoon. As you've heard, my name is Keyzom, and I am based with the United Nations at the Better Than Cash Alliance. We work with over 75 governments, companies, and international organizations to launch and scale responsible digital payments to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. India is, of course, one of our important members, and I have the pleasure of welcoming again the two dignitaries to this panel. Shri K. Rajaraman is the Additional Secretary at the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. As you have heard, he is an IAS officer of the Tamil Nadu cadre, and he's responsible for convening the government's Interministerial Committee on FinTech. And today we will ask his views on how government's inclusion agenda is shaping its outlook for the role that financial technologies play in digital payments. We also have Shri Jayesh Ranjan, also from IAS, and he is the Principal Secretary at the Telangana government, identifying opportunities for utilizing information technology in various government processes and promoting digital empowerment of citizens. Telangana has 60% of its population that's rural, and we will be seeking his views on digital empowerment in rural India and how he engages with the private sector and innovators to accelerate responsible digital payments for the rural and underserved communities. Before we start the discussion, I just want to take you, our viewers, through some noteworthy initiatives that the Government of India has adopted to respond swiftly and with purpose during the current COVID-19 pandemic. While many countries struggled with limited digital identity and payment infrastructure to serve their citizens in a targeted and timely manner, this country of 1.3 billion people has been a beacon, a clear example of the payoffs it is reaping by investing early in foundational infrastructure. In the last 4 years, India has seen widespread adoption of digital payments, and what this pandemic and the resulting lockdown has done is cause a shift in behaviors and attitudes. For instance, while the neighborhood retail shop regained its prominence in people's lives, the way people interact with these kirana shops has changed decidedly in favor of digital payments. More and more of them have gone digital to survive, and technology entrepreneurs have sought to add voice chats, for example, in regional languages to move offline transactions to online in smaller cities and smaller towns as well. To look at the bigger picture, the Government of India under the Garib Kalyan Yojana transferred over $24 billion to nearly 320 million people who needed it most using digital payments. But the picture has not been uniform. Digitization has unwanted side effects, abuse and failure, and sometimes exclusion. The Aadhaar-enabled transactions in April this year saw a dramatic spike in failure rates, 39%. There are complaints of overcharging, sometimes by business correspondents and other agents. And therefore, today, we want to talk about two things with the Government of India. How is the government working with the private sector to accelerate digital payments in every corner of the world, in every corner of the country? And while doing that, how is government ensuring that these are responsible digital payments? So Jayesh, I'll start with you. Telangana is home to T-Wallet, the first digital wallet to be owned and operated by a state government to digitally empower especially those without mobile phones. In this crisis, you have enabled 1,000 kirana stores to accept digital payments and connect people to markets. What is the thinking behind the key steps that Telangana is taking to accelerate digital payments? And what are the measures you are taking to mitigate abuse and increase trust for its usage?
Thank you very much, Keyzom ji. Good afternoon, all the viewers. let me first of all let you know that not is it the first state-owned digital wallet, it is the only state-owned digital wallet in the country. And coincidentally, it started 3 years ago. Exactly in June 2017, we launched T-Wallet. And I'm very, very proud to share with you that it has been downloaded almost 1 million times, almost 1 million transactions happen every month. And on an average, we do about 400 crores of transactions. Cumulatively, about 7,200 crores of transactions have been happening. 20 different government departments utilize T-Wallet for all kinds of their integrations. And amazingly, this is the only semi-closed loop wallet which has been given permission, a special permission by the RBI. No other wallet in the country has this permission of cash withdrawal using biometric authentication. So this is a very versatile wallet. It is a very viable alternative to DBT instead of transferring money to a bank account. And as you mentioned, it is so versatile that it, of course, works on smartphones, it works on feature phones, and it also works on a no-phone scenario. There is an assisted facility also of supporting digital transactions. And since we are discussing all these topics today in this COVID kind of a scenario, let me also share with you a great example. You already alluded to it. Typically, during this lockdown period, the obtaining groceries was quite a task for people. Of course, e-commerce companies were allowed to deliver groceries, but typically in towns and smaller places, and even in smaller neighborhoods in a city like Hyderabad, we develop an attachment with our neighborhood grocer. Typically, these are generational attachments. We purchase from them, our fathers would have purchased from them, grandfathers would have purchased, and there is a symbiotic kind of a relational transactional quality. Now, these Kirana stores, as you would imagine, are typically run by people who are not that tech savvy, they're not very educated, and there is a lot of mental block on how do you get online. So because we have a facility like T-Wallet, we were able to convert thousands of Kirana stores in Hyderabad and other towns into digital stores. So they can display all their inventory online. They can take orders online. T-Wallet is the payment gateway. And another advantage of T-Wallet over other wallets is there are lots of private wallets that for government transactions, we don't take any commission. There is no transaction fees. And for the purpose of enabling our Kirana stores also to get digital, we have waived transaction fees for them also. So thousands of Kirana stores were able to transact digitally and provide that neighborhood kind of services to their regular patrons. And this is a very significant success story in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Jayesh. Indeed, it's an incredible step forward in the right direction, and thank you for leading by example and for walking the talk. Rajaraman ji, with COVID-19, the role of fintechs in payments has created new opportunities, but also exposed new risks that requires greater collaboration across the board. There's clearly a potential for far more use of real-time feedback systems as programs go digital. What are some of the key steps that the Ministry of Finance and government at large is taking to coordinate the emerging grievances of consumers for digital payments to ensure swift and coordinated response by the industry?
Thank you, Keyzom ji, and often to all the viewers and all of you. Basically, I mean, the Government of India's response to or the policy towards digital financial services has been towards strengthening financial inclusion. That has been the agenda of the government, while at the same time reducing the costs of doing business, raising the ease of doing business, enhancing the ease of living. These are some of the broader objectives of the digital payments trusts and the initiatives the Government of India has been taking. So, in this context, the FinTech committee was formed last year to look at some of the steps that the government could take to accelerate these objectives which I just mentioned. So, the initiatives which focus on the financial services industry, on government services, which Jayesh had pointed out, and regulatory issues related to financial services. So, some of these are the focus of the FinTech committee recommendations. So, they are all focused on enhancing options for the consumer, ease of doing business, and ease of living for individual consumers, and so on. And finally, eventually, they all go towards solving the grievances of the consumer, rather eliminating grievances of consumers, which you just mentioned at this point in time. So if you look at the grievances of individual consumers in general, of financial services, they are all related to lack of transparency, accessibility, service delivery, speed and quality, then fraud, then hassles in accessing financial services. So essentially, if you look at it, financial technologies can cut across and eliminate a lot of these grievances in one stroke, as has been seen in cases. And but of course, they would create a few other problems as well. But by and large, I think they tend to eliminate a number of classes of these grievances. Look at the grievances of business consumers. They relate to delays in credit, delays in say in KYC and costs of the services. So these are some of the grievances which business consumers have. So financial technologies in general and digital payment technologies in specific offer a variety of solutions to make life easier for all of them, both business as well as individuals. But at the same time, as you pointed out, they have the risk of people being left behind. People of all kinds of various literacy levels. They also expose consumers to cyber frauds and cyber crimes. Data privacy is another issue which has been a hot topic in the last several years. So all these need to be addressed while we offer solutions to the public at large. So if you look at the Government of India's initiative, over the last 5 years, I think they have built up a very solid digital payments infrastructure, which has been used by many of these innovators to actually expand and to reach out to people of various kinds. So we popularly call them the JAM Trinity. Basically, bank accounts through the Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar, which is the national ID, and mobile phones, which is the device or the technology that is used to reach these services. So this JAM Trinity has actually enabled us to widen the work towards financial inclusion, and also created probably broadened the reach and range of the digital payment services. So that's one part of the story. Second part of the story has been fintech companies. So they themselves have been very innovative, and over the last few years, they have built up a number of solutions which are very, very, really very innovative and out of the box. So as far as government is concerned, we support innovation, and we want to support regulation and policies which are technology neutral and are focused on outcomes for the end user rather than probably particular technologies. So if you look at the work which has been done, I would like to spend another minute on the work that has been done. If you look at the KYC options that have been built up, this is also a part of the infrastructure. KYC is also infrastructure which actually enables digital payment services. So we have now video KYC which has been enabled recently. You have the electronic KYC through OTP. You have the CKYC, which is a piece of infrastructure to build up a solid user databases or used by the financial services industry. So all these KYC initiatives require a lot of fine tuning. A lot of work has been done, but they need to be fine tuned and they have to be taken to scale at the earliest. So that is something which the FinTech Committee is working on. And if you look at the solution to some of the consumer grievances, RBI has introduced an ombudsman scheme for digital transactions since 2019. So which actually covers complaints related to UPI, BB, Bharat Bill Pay, the QR code, etc. So I think that now the consumer grievance framework has also been laid out. And in addition, I think you have this peer-to-peer lending, which is another form of digital financial service which has been launched. So for that as well, we have an RBI monitoring mechanism and an ombudsman scheme. So what I would like to say is that now a number of technology options have come out. So the question is that the regulators as well as the government have to be alive to the possibilities of use as well as misuse, ensure that the risks are kept minimal while ensuring that this reaches out to as many people as possible. So we have actually set up a interministerial steering committee headed by the Secretary of Economic Affairs, which actually meets regularly, look at the various aspects of this financial digital payment systems and fintech, and looks at how to enable more and more options and enable that more and more people are able to use them in a risk-free or a manner which poses lesser risk to the financial system. So, I would also like to talk about the cyber fraud prevention, because that is also an issue which I think we have to look at. So, the RBI has put in place a mechanism for where there is a zero liability or a minimum liability for consumers for frauds are perpetrated. So, they also have laid down a system for how compensation has to be given to the consumers. So, the burden of proving consumer liability is now on the bank now. So, these are all some of the principles on which the framework has been built up. Now, last but not the least, I would also like to mention the RBI Committee on Digital Payments, which was set up under the chairmanship of Nandan Nilekani. It has made a number of recommendations. I think these are all work in progress, which I think will actually take digital payments to the next level. I think various government departments and agencies are working on it, like the centralized fraud registry for real-time rating of transaction risks, the operationalization of the search fin, which is, I think, is a very important oversight and monitoring mechanism for digital payments, and things like, say, a dispute resolution system for the payment system operators. So these are all things, I think, which are works in progress. We'll continue to monitor these measures and actually bring in these systems to enable digital payments to go to the next level over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajaraman ji. Indeed, as many have said in this summit, as well as outside the summit, that the government of India, as well as the regulator, have been extremely progressive when it comes to digital payments. And it's great also to see an increasing attention on the trust factor and the security factors of digital payments. Jayesh, the next question is for you. In the northeast of India, where 44 million Indians live, has seen significant progress since the launch of the Digital Northeast Vision. Indeed, nearly 100% of the households in the region have a bank account, and the penetration of RuPay cards is above national average. With 150 million digital transactions every year, the Northeast is emerging as a force, with women accounting for nearly half of the merchants in states like Manipur, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. Yet only 15% of the Kirana shops there have digital acceptance points to drive payments at consumers' end and for businesses. And this is also very true across rural India. Could you share your perspective, especially given your experience in digital empowerment and working at an administrative level across Telangana, including in the rural areas? What could the rest of India learn from the Northeast experience as the journey towards digital usage and adoption accelerates in COVID-19?
Keyzom ji, there are lots of similarities between the Northeast scenario and some of the remote rural parts of the states which are there in the country. Let me give you a very interesting example. The farthest district from Hyderabad, the district which is the remotest, so to say, is a district called Adilabad. And it is typically a very forested district. Lots of tribal communities live there. So there's a village called Lohar. This is quite far from the district headquarters. And because of lack of connectivity, etc., poor connectivity, let me say, the villagers typically would travel to the district headquarters for all their financial transactions, banking transactions, and obviously they will face lots of hardship. So in each of the panchayat in Telangana, we have a citizen services center, which we call Me Seva Center. So the operator, the village level entrepreneur who operates this center, somehow he figured out that there is a tree outside the village, just at the border of the village, where for somehow the reception is good. So today, I mean, during this COVID time, when we had so much of DBT transfers, etc., on an average, he did 75,000 rupees of digital transactions every day by taking people under that tree and using his mobile phone to catch the reception. So that tree is called the signal tree, incidentally. And there are many other examples of these kind of course, these are not sustainable solutions. We need to invest in improving the digital infrastructure, but opportunities are still not completely lacking. And of course, there are challenges in the rural areas. We know that wherever the connectivity is poor, transaction failures are more, and therefore that confidence that digital transactions are credible, that gets eroded. Similarly, even for fintech companies, the cost of acquiring a merchant is much higher as compared to rest of the area. So there are challenges, but the way we need to overcome is by kind of convincing the people, convincing the users that while there could be occasional failures, etc., the benefit that you accrue are many, many times higher. And again, I can share this with you from our Telangana example. There are many villages today where there is 100% digitization in terms of payments. I'll again give you a very interesting story. See, typically during this October, November period, there are lots of festivals, local festivals, and people go to temples, they go to local kind of worship places. And as you know, it is a ritual in India that if you go to a temple, you make some small donation, you pay some 10 rupees, 20 rupees. So there are some villages very rural villages, remote villages, where even the 10 rupees that you pay in a temple is paid digitally. There's a QR code on the temple, so you scan it and automatically 10 rupees get transferred. So people have made it a habit. So eventually in the Northeast kind of a scenario, that habit building exercise needs to happen, and that can only happen if you're able to give them with lots of conviction the answers which typically they would have in their mind. Will this lead to some extra charges? Will my account money be taken away from my account without my knowledge? So some of the issues which Mr. Rajaraman pointed out about security, about cyber frauds, etc. We must give them answers with confidence, lots of hand-holding. So therefore, this grassroots level of mobilization, we need to build solutions from the bottoms up. This is the learning from rural Telangana, and I'm very sure that it has lots of possibilities for Northeast region also, given the fact that penetration of RuPay cards and overall literacy and the discipline in the society and the ability to work as a community is very, very high in the Northeast region.
Indeed, Jayesh ji, you just reminded me of how important it is to leverage the strength and presence of strong local institutions and the community fabric to really build that trust and adoption of digital payments. Absolutely. And my next question, therefore, is then for Rajaraman ji. The Honorable Prime Minister, in his masterstroke, prioritized women by sending her cash transfers to the Jan Dhan Yojana infrastructure. The government knows that the investment in women is an investment in the family. Yet women in India are 20% less likely to own a mobile phone and 50% less likely to access mobile internet. Only 8% of India's banking correspondents are women. How is the government closing these gaps?
Thank you, Keyzom ji. So, as I already mentioned, I think the Jan Dhan Yojana, the Aadhaar, and the mobile are the cornerstones of this expansion initiative. So, if you look at the Jan Dhan Yojana and Aadhaar, there the gender gap has been closed largely, because if you look at the 39 crore beneficiaries or the bank account holders who hold new accounts under the scheme, that is nearly about 400 million. So, out of that, a little more than 50% are women. So, which means that, this scheme has been rather gender neutral. Aadhaar has been pretty neutral because it's there for everybody. So, it's basically the mobile phone and internet access where the gender gap arises. I think if you look at from a digital payments perspective. So, and more so in the internet access rather than in the mobile phone, because you see the studies and the data which is available. Mobile phone ownership is a little more inclusive than probably the access to internet. So now, if you look at our experience in this during this COVID, 50% of the money which was transferred as direct benefit transfers of something like the number that you mentioned, it's about roughly about 65,000 crores. The direct benefit transfers, 50%, a little more than 50% actually was sent to women. Out of the 42 crore beneficiaries, 20.53 crore beneficiaries were women. So, which means that the technology has actually enabled us to reach women faster than probably than you would have done otherwise. So, but nevertheless, I think we recognize the problem or the shortfall in the mobile ownership and usage, etc. If you look at the self-help groups, I think that has also been another major initiative where I think women have focus has been then our women to ensure that we close the gender gap. So we have about 65 lakh self-help groups with 7 crore members, under the National Rural Livelihoods Mission spread across the country, including Northeast, where women have preferential access to credit and to financial services. So I think the combination of JAM and the SHG and NRLM to actually form the cornerstone of enabling women to become more digital friendly and access the benefits. Now, if you look at the gender gap under the mobile phone access, when I was just referring to the GSMA gender gap report of 2019, which compares a number of countries, it's a very interesting report. You look at the reasons for the gender gap in mobile phone ownership and internet access, etc. It largely focuses on illiteracy, skills, I think maybe which Jayesh referred to, and also a certain amount of community aversion to empowering women. And maybe that is very little in India. In fact, I was very happy to see that and on affordability. I think even on affordability and the community gender gap, I think we are much better. In fact, the affordability has actually improved substantially over the last few years with falling voice and data rates. So I think we need to largely tackle the literacy and the family-related hurdles, and maybe the point which Jayesh raised, regarding the fear about cyber crimes and cyber fraud. I think these are the areas where I think we need to work on. So basically, if you look at the Government of India's initiative in the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Saksharata Abhiyan, I think the focus has been precisely to address this issue of illiteracy, get people more used and accustomed to digital technologies, use of computers, tablets, iPads, etc. So I guess maybe the scheme needs to take this familiarity and to the next level, and to get over the fears of getting cheated, etc. So while that be on the one hand, the other hand, I think the Universal Services Obligation Fund, they also have worked on the mobile connectivity to the left and extremist areas, the northeast, and many other rural areas where I think mobile phone connectivity has been extended to the use of this fund. BharatNet program is also one other program where optic fiber connectivity has been reached out to many villages, and I'm sure that as the services get rolled out, I think more and more women also will get covered under this scheme. So I would like to end by saying that we need to strengthen the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, in terms of the mobile phone connectivity, in terms of the soft infrastructure, in terms of, say, the various pools of applications that are available. I think we need to expand that and maybe make it more convenient, maybe more resilient to cyber attacks and so on and so forth. So the RBI has actually set up a payment infrastructure development fund, which I think probably can be accessed by payment system operators and many other players in this, to actually take the quality of infrastructure to the next level. I would also end by adding a couple of more points. Maybe there is also this issue of artificial intelligence, which you also have raised. So this artificial intelligence poses a benefit, at the same time it poses threats. So chatbots can enhance user convenience, but at the same time, for an uninformed user, it could pose challenges. So to summarize, I think what the Government of India intends to do is to look at how to enhance the digital literacy of women in particular, increasing mobile ownership, variety of means. Many state governments have been very proactive. They have actually supplied mobile phones to women of self-help groups and so on and so forth. This is actually to break the barrier. I think that those are very good schemes, if I may refer to them. Then we also need to tailor-make products which are used by women. In fact, SHG-friendly products, financial products which can be brought out as maybe apps by many of the fintech companies and others, could also probably help in breaking this barrier and making women access these services better. So these are some of my thoughts, Keyzom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajaraman ji. Indeed, a gender lens to the entire ecosystem is going to ensure then that she's an equal part and participant of the digital payments journey of the India. Thank you so much, Jayesh ji and Rajaraman ji, for this insightful conversation and for the key steps that the Government of India is taking at the central level, at the state level, to take forward the responsible digital payments agenda. We know that they drive growth. Economies that switch to digital are more successful, and the rise is inevitable. It will spur economic growth and increase inclusion. However, as you have also pointed out, and as the UN Secretary General said at his launch of the Digital Cooperation Roadmap last week, that while digital technologies and payments is shaping history, there is also the sense that it's running away with us. Where will it take us? Will our societies become more equal or less equal? Will people feel safer or less safe? The answers to these questions depend on the government and the private sector's ability to work together. And we have a collective responsibility to give direction to these technologies so that we may maximize the benefits and leave no one behind. And with this, please accept my heartfelt gratitude for joining this fireside chat with me. Thank you so much, Jayesh ji and Rajaraman ji.